Hello everyone, today I thought for my monthly video that I do now I would make a tier list, because even though this is not as high effort as my usual endeavor, I am making quite a big video next month. I'm gonna release it on June 15th, it's been in the making for a while, I'm probably gonna spend quite a long time editing it compared to my usual video, so hopefully me just making a tier list this month is fine, because the next month's video is gonna be so good. And why a controversy tier list? Well, I was in a Discord witnessing it, and someone said, wow, wouldn't it be funny to power scale Fire Emblems based off their controversies or something? And I thought, you know what? That would be funny, so I'm stealing the idea. So this is a Fire Emblem controversy tier list, and you can apply this to your real life because, you know, you like Fire Emblem, and you want to recommend it to your friend, but there are some games where if you give it to a normal person and they read the dialogue or see what's happening, they'll think you're a real freak of nature for recommending this game series to them. So we're going to use this tier list as a way to help you with that, to see how you can get your friends into Fire Emblem in a non-controversial way, and then tell them to never play Awakening. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Oh, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see, whatever. Where is Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light? Now, this game is interesting because it's the start of Kaga's hypnosis. I don't think I can say it on YouTube. It starts with an F, and the word is, of course, fascination. Kaga's hypnosis fascination. If you play all of the games made by our beautiful Lord and Savior Shozo Kaga, you will notice that a girl, or a woman of sorts, below the age of 18 gets hypnotized. Now, Tiki is technically above the age of 18, but you know, she's a child still, so we're just gonna do, we're scaling. And the thing is, hypnosis on its own isn't strange. It's the fact that it's a pattern, right? It's the fact that it's a pattern. So since this is the first game in the series, you know, if you told your friend to play this game and this one game and they saw that Tiki got hypnotized, they probably wouldn't question it. They'd just be like, oh, Garneth is an evil wizard. Now, Lind, I think, who is also below the age of 18, gets sold as a slave, and you could say, ooh, there's some bad connotations, but she was pretending to be a boy who is fully clothed, so it's not in the weird way. I think she was just doing that to try to get close to the Arcanine Palace, so we're chill on that front, so that's not really controversial. And besides that, it's your pretty typical fantasy standard story. Some people will claim that Mathis has a thing for his sister. This is not true. Not true. Kaga's, again, I'm just gonna say incest. You know, that wasn't until the later games, so we're chill on that front. I'm the expert on Mathis, so even though it, you know, you could say, oh, it has the million-year-old thing that looks like a child. The thing is, before Awakening, ladies and gents, they actually treated the baby dragon characters like actual children, like Faye, Mir, Tiki. They are not treated weird in the slightest whatsoever, so they're just treated like children, and it's fine. So, because this game, you know, if you just told your friend to play this, they might not even notice the hypnosis thing. They might not think it's weird. So, we're just gonna put this one safely in non-controversial. Now, Fire Emblem Gaiden, I have not played this game, but I've played Echoes, and I know what Echoes adds to the story, so I think I might be safe to judge on this one. Again, I think you just go and you beat up the dragon. Now, you may be thinking 5 points. Wait, doesn't it have the female lead constantly being saved by her brother, so that's kind of a gender thing? No, my friends, no, because that was added in Echoes, from what I've heard, from what I've seen. Again, having never played this game on my own, because I didn't like Echoes that much, so I didn't really feel inclined to play an even more outdated version of it, but from what I can tell, all the sexism, that was added in the remake, so Kaga was actually quite progressive. And let's see, is there anything weird? There is the Delphia. The Delphia, again, Kaga's fascination with hypnosis. So since this is the second time, you know, odd, you know, first time's odd. So, you know what, first time is odd. No, let me get this straight. First time is fine. Second time is odd, but we're not going to call it strange until it happens a third time. We're not going to raise our eyebrows until it happens a third time, right? Because it happens to Maria in the next game, and that's a tad strange. So, we're going to slot this one safely and non-controversial. Again, you know, there's not really a lot of romance in this, you know. There's not even a dragon child, so actually it's less controversial, because some people think the idea of a million-year-old children is controversial no matter how they're depicted. Like, when it comes to Faye, I think Faye is completely fine in Fire Emblem 6, because she acts like a little stupid baby, and she hits her head on a coconut, and nobody acts weird around her, so I think that's fine. They're just treating her like a kid. So I think that's fine. And so I don't think there's anything odd. Again, there's Kaga's Hypnosis Fascination. And now, where is Mystery of the Emblem? There's no off-color jokes as far as I remember, but I've never played the game myself, so there could be an off-color joke about something. Aha, Mystery of the Emblem. Here we go, here we go. So, for the NES games, it is completely safe to recommend your friends this game. And I'm going to put this in ever so slightly controversial, ever so slightly, because it bumps the hypnosis thing up to 4. 4 women are hypnotized in this game, actually. 5, because Book 1 still has Tiki, but then Book 4 has the other ones. And, let's see. Is anything... I don't think anything strange is said about Yumina, no, because that's only in Buraku Emblem. There's this ROM hack where Violet is the main character, and Castor sells them into slavery, and it's weird. But that doesn't happen in the base game. I was thinking, wait, does anything weird happen with Yumina? But I got my wires crossed there. Let's see. No, you go through... part the dragons, that's fine. Tiki isn't even hypnotized in Book 2, she's just sleeping, and then you go through it. Hardin is the villain, so him being mean to his wife isn't exactly controversial. You would expect an evil guy to do that. Nope, I really think it's just the hypnosis thing. But at this point but if you tell your friend to play Fire Emblem 3, right? And he plays Book 1, he notices the 1 hypnosis, then he plays Book 2, and he notices the 5 hypnosises, you know, that might raise his eyebrow, you know, or her, or them. That might make them think, this game has a lot of hypnosis in it. I don't know about that, but, so we're gonna bump this one up to ever so slightly controversial, because it does have a lot of Kaga's fascination with hypnosis. I'd say this is where it probably peaks. Genealogy of the Holy War. Ooh, okay, so this game has a lot of incest. A lot of it, ladies and gentlemen. I won't fool you. But, you know, some people say that's period accurate. And it's depicted, you know, here's the argument I see on Twitter. It's depicted as bad because, oh, Arvis and Deirdre do it, and then they make the Antichrist. So Kaga's obviously trying to make a statement here, and it's like, no, not really, because the other result of that marriage is Julia, who is actually Jesus Christ. You know, Julius is the Antichrist. No, Julia is the Jesus Christ because she smites him with her divine power, so that's, you know, I don't really think Kaga's making a statement there. And then there's the fact that you, as the player, can do it on accident. Like, in my first run-through of Genealogy, I had Lex and Ira get married because, you know, they were my 2 favorite characters to use, so I was like, alright, I'm gonna get some real power children here. And then Larce is born, right? And then, you know, I think Johan and Javier, those are the 2 that are in love with her. I got the one on the horse. I forget who's who. And I was like, okay, so they're probably going to get a fast relationship with Larce so that I can make the money. And then it wasn't until after the game where I realized, I paused for a second and I was like, wait a minute. If these guys are Lex's nephews, and Lex gave birth to oh, no, and it was too late, ladies and gentlemen. I had fallen into Shozo Kaga's devious trap, and there's a lot of stuff like that, right? Like, I think Larce has a fast relationship build with Shanam, who is her cousin, and also, like, a billion years older than her. And then there's Patty, who's, like, 14, and there's Shanam. People like Shanam. They like his, what's it called? His sword, his big sword that gives him plus 1,000,000 to speed. It's not the Gay Bulge. It is, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, who cares? I think, you know, we gotta put Shanam on the list, unfortunately, who goes to the island. Because there's your baby cousin who you build a fast relationship with, and then there's Patty. There's no other way around this, folks. I know people love Shanam because he's cool, but folks, he's got to go on the list. I'm sorry. And there's just so much odd stuff like that. And there's the hypnosis thing because Deirdre gets hypnotized in Book 1, and then Julia gets hypnotized in Book 2. And so there's the There's the incest, there's the child marriage, because you can, like, marry Bridget to do, and there's a lot there. So, you know what? I think Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War, we're gonna have to put you in highly controversial. If you recommended your friend this game, and they played it, and they read all the lines and noticed all of these things, they would probably go, wow, so this is what my friend plays, huh? That's interesting, that's interesting. Fire Emblem Thracia 776, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I think I am going to have to put this in highly controversial. Because, ladies and gentlemen, because there's this character named Pern, and there's this character named Laura, and Laura is like 14 or 15, and Pern essentially was her pimp. And you unlock her dancing ability. She's the dancer in this game because Pern's like, hey, baby, I loved it so much when you danced for me. And, ooh, that's kind of controversial, Kaga. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. And then there's Reinhardt, who wants to marry Ishtar, even though he was, like, her caretaker for her since she was like a baby. He was like her guardian. So that's that you could put that in grooming. You could put that in the grooming category. And then of course there's the hypnosis, because Marita gets hypnotized. Kaga, this is the last time, folks, we have to bring this up. So that's good at least. And then so Thracia 77. Oh, and then there's Lithis. I forget, did Lithis want to R-word what's her name? Safi? I don't remember. I think the implication was that, right, he had Safi in a cell, and he was going to proposition her to do the deed, or make it seem like he was a good guy or something. But either way, another dubious thing. And these people join your party. Pern, Lithis, they join your party. You get some, you know, Thracia's a dark story, you know, Leaf has no resources, he's no money, he's broke, so he's got to recruit bad people, you know, that's kind of part of the story. But even still, if your friend is a morally upstanding citizen and you tell them, hey, start with Thracia 776, which I don't know why the hell you would do that. Start with Thracia. This game is like... For one, your friend would hate you, even outside of everything I just said, and everyone who plays Thracia knows why. But the thing about it is that... let's see, does it also have the incest from Genealogy, though? Julius is present, but I don't think it's really a part of the story, per se, because that's more something that happens in Genealogy. You know what, but I would argue some of the stuff Thracia does is worse. So, do not recommend your friends if they want you to think you're a normal, upstanding citizen. Do not recommend Genealogy or Thracia to start with. That might make them raise some eyebrows, ladies and gentlemen. And now we have Fire Emblem the Binding Blade, and I would love to put it in not controversial. I would love to do that. I would love to do that, ladies and gentlemen. But, you see, it's like Fire Emblem 1. You go on your journey, you slay the dragon, and everyone's happy, and there's a party, and oh my god, everyone's so happy, and Boris is there, it's so great, you know. Faye, treated very normally. A lot of things happen, you know. The subject of genocide, treated with respect. You know, Rutger, all of his people were killed, and now he's all edgy, and he talks to people about it. Nice writing on that front. Sue's got to deal with her Sican, Purge, and all of that. It's very nice. They handle the potentially sensitive topics, and they write interesting characters around them. That's good. Really ready to give this game the passing grade. However, again, really wholesome game. You got the Gonzalez Olina support where he gives her a flower and it's all cute. However, there's one support with the main character, Roy Fire Emblem. And he has a support with someone named Cecilia, who is his teacher. I think Roy in this game is 15. And Cecilia is, like, I don't know, 35, 40. She's old. She's kind of old. And what will happen is if you get to them there to their A support, and again, she's his teacher, she will actually marry this 15-year-old boy, who is now the leader of the Lycean League. And that is kinda odd. perhaps a little strange even. Now, I don't know if this is like a thing in Japan. Like, I haven't played the Persona series, but I know of it. I've heard the stories where, like, you have this teacher in the 5th game, and, like, you're the student, and you can marry her, and then, like, in the 3rd game, you meet your teacher in, like, an MMO, and you can marry her, and it seems to just be a thing on some, I don't remember, like, specifically, but some shows I've watched where it's like, ooh, the haunts for teachers. Is this, like, a thing in Japan? Is this, like, a trope? Is this a thing people do in Japan? I don't know. I can't say I'm very culturally aware on that front, but I'm going to put it at the very, very, very bottom of ever so slightly controversial. The very bottom, ladies and gentlemen. The very bottom. And because there's one, your friend might see Cecilia and go, wow, she's not that good. She only has 2 move in her joint chapter. I'm not going to use her. And then they will not get the A support with Roy, and then they will think, wow, that was a perfectly nice fantasy story where the boy goes on to slay the dragon. I'm glad nothing controversial happened, but there's always the off chance. There's always the off chance that they will do that. And they will go, I don't know about that one. And then that will occur. Fire Emblem 7. Now, if you tell your friend to play this, they won't find anything controversial. However, they will probably think you're a fan of terrible gameplay and poorly written stories. So I still wouldn't go for that. But again, I don't really think, there's Nils, who's the million-year-old dragon. He's just treated like a kid normally. He goes along for the adventure. Lynn. Oh, nope. I'm remembering Lindis. Lindis had her age changed from the Japanese version, I think from 15 to 18. So she was technically an adult because they probably thought people would get the hots for Lynn and they didn't want people to be weird about it. But does that deduct controversy points because they made Lynn an adult? Or is it like, again, I don't even think anything particularly weird happens with Lynn because you don't have an avatar in this game. It's not like you can romance her. So it's like, what were they going for with that? I haven't read the Japanese script, so I don't know if anyone's like, ooh, Lynn, I love you because you're... But, so they did make her 18, but I don't know. Again, I don't really remember anything particularly odd. Oh, wait, no. No, because she has I remember in her combat animation, she has the physics with her breasts. Okay. So if the devs were trying to make, I don't know how anyone could be, like, attracted to, like, a 32-bit sprite. I don't know how that occurs. Like, I've seen people online go like, oh, Lynn's physics in the sprite. And it's like, there are women in real life that look real and aren't made of pixels. So I think that's kind of odd to make a comment like that. I think waifu general in culture is odd. So, okay, so they did deliberately do that. The developers did do that with the 15-year-old character, and then they changed it in America. Okay, so, but the thing is, right, I mean, women do have that in real life where they're, I'm trying to phrase this in a not weird way, their chest area will move if they, like, jump up and down, and Lynn does a bunch of acrobatics. So, again, I don't really think that's inherently sexual. That's just sort of a physics thing that happens, but I think it's more so the fact that people online and in real life are weird about it, like, because that's like, it's like if you throw a bouncy ball against a wall, it will bounce. That's just physics. So I don't know. It's like, were the Nintendo of America developers trying to do that? Because they saw that and were like, oh, people might sexualize this. We better make her 18. But it's like, but the animators animated that? I don't know. Either way, the fact that I have to think about it this hard probably means it's ever so slightly controversial. And what's going to put it above Fire Emblem 6, and probably this one, is that you can make Fire Emblem 6 incestuous, because the main ship in Fire Emblem 6 is Roy and Lillian. It's like pretty much canon. They make freaking bridal alts of them holding hands, all that crap. They're always together. But you can have, I forgot all the Pegasus riders' names, so I think I'm just going to say Florina and Farina. You can make Eliwood marry Florina, and Hector marry Farina or whatever. And they're sisters, so then Roy and Lilina would be cousins. So you can inadvertently do that. And that's going back and making a game that's not really all that controversial, it's slightly more controversial, but it's Fire Emblem 7's fault that happened. So we're going to put that above Mystery of the Emblem. Again, that Lynn thing, because I'm trying to figure out, are the devs weird for that? Or are people weird for that? Because, if I see something like that in a video game, like, people have to point that out to me. I don't even notice, because I don't really care. I'm just here for the tactics and stuff. Again, waifu culture, I find it to be a confusing thing. Because, again, there are women who are real, and you can go out on dates with, as I have, and you can probably have more fun with that than playing Fire Emblem 7 on the Game Boy Advance. So, alright, I think I'm going to have... Okay. In Fire Emblem Sacred Stones, I'm going to put this at the very bottom of Not Controversial, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know why? There's no sussy hypnosis, mirror, child, treated completely normally. It's a very lighthearted story. Well, not really. There's a guy named Leon, he's your friend, but other than that, I'd say it's pretty jovial compared to something like Genealogy or Thracia. Pretty jovial. I don't really think there are any off-color supports. I haven't read them all, so I could be misremembering. I'm a big fan of loot. I like loot. And you just go through the game. You can't marry your teacher. There is the thing where, and I did ask some friends in my Discord about this, and I say, hey, is Ephraim ex Erica, is that something the game ever brings up, or is that something the internet made up? Because I did not know. And they said, that is something the internet made up. Right? So that's not a thing. So it doesn't have the sussy hypnosis. Mirror isn't treated weirdly. There's no incest. There's no weird things occurring generally as far as I'm concerned. Odd romances. I think, as far as Sacred Stones goes, it might be the least controversial game in the series. So far, anyway. And you know what? It's pretty easy, so you can say to your... And it has a story, you know, it's not my cup of tea, but a lot of people like it because of the Leon stuff. I just never really got into it, so... But by most people's opinion, the story... quite nice. So you could say, hey, you want to start Fire Emblem, play Sacred Stones. It's easy, you know, you can beat the whole game with Seth, but it has some fun elements like choosing your classes. That was invented in this game. Has a split route for some replayability. If your friend likes it so much they want to try it again, yes, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I would dare say that having your friends start with Sacred Stones is not the worst idea. Quite fine. Me personally, I prefer Binding Blade, but that's me. And now we get to the first one I'm going to put in controversial. Where is Path of Radiance? This one. Ladies and gentlemen, now, the interesting thing about this one, you know, it's a game about not being racist. The game very much wants you to not be racist. You know, you got Jill, you join Jill, and then they mate Leith, and they're like, oh, Leith, I hate you because of your race. But then, by the end of their support, they learn to love each other, and some people even ship them, including me. I am Jill X Leith Nation, but I love the fan art of them. But for a game so staunchly about not being racist, there's this one character. You might know who I'm talking about already, but you might not. There's this one character named Devdan, and he is the first black character in the series. Now, what did they do with the first black character in the series? They did this thing, ladies and gentlemen, where they made him something called the minstrel archetype, where, you know, they used to do the... Back in the day, you know, they used to do funny shows, well, I retract that, quote-unquote funny. You know, their intention was to be funny, but it's really not, because it depicts, you know, black people as stupid and whatnot, and they took that, and they saw that, and were like, alright, let's make that Devdan. But here's the thing, where I'm kind of torn on this. I did not know what a minstrel show was when I first played Path of Radiance. I got to Davdon, or Danvid, I forget what he's called in this game. I think Path of Radiance, he's Devdon. And I was just like, wow, this guy, he likes children, not in a weird way, ladies and gentlemen. He's like a teacher, he likes imparting wisdom upon them. You see, the thing about... I'm so torn on Devdan, and even saying that might get me some raised eyebrows, but from a surface level, if you don't know what a minstrel show is, like I didn't when I first played Path of Radiance, and you're just like, wow, so this guy, he likes teaching kids, he says funny things, he's like, mwah-ha-hee-ho, Devdan can't do anything. The fact that he talks in the first person is, I think, one of the archetype things, by the way, or the stereotype, or what have you. That's it, but again, I didn't know this, so I didn't know they were being racist. I just thought, wow, Devdan, you're a really cool guy, you like teaching children lessons, and the thing is, they depict him kind of as like a wise person. You know, he goes to Ike, and Ike's like, ooh, I'm focusing on the war, and this is like a base conversation, and Devdan's like, Ike, man, you gotta stop, and you gotta appreciate the flower. This flower is just more important as the war. I don't remember the exact thing, but people who know the base conversation probably know the general vibe of what I'm talking about. And Ike's like, wow, Devdan, that's pretty wise. I think I am gonna appreciate the flower. So the thing is, right, I don't think, and this is conjecture, this is theory, I don't think the Fire Emblem developers have hatred in their heart. I don't think they do, because let's think about it. Path of Radiance, that's the sequel game, they obviously had to follow up, but the next completely new games in the series Awakening, we get Flavia and Bacillo, and they're the coolest characters in the game by far. They're my favorite Awakening characters by like a country mile. They have active roles in the story. They're depicted as very cool, very competent. You know, Bacillo's in on the whole faking his death plan to get one over on Walhart or whatever to change fate, and it's like, okay, these are cool guys, and you know, then we got then from there we continued having characters like Niles who people like, and it's like that. So I don't think that the developers had hatred in their heart when they made DevDan, because again, like, even though he is depicted in the way he is, it's like he's still a chill guy, right? If you were in Europe, did they have minstrel shows in Europe? And I don't know, and you played this game and you never heard of that, and you got DevDan, you would probably think, damn, DevDan, you're a chill guy. But the fact of the matter is they did do it. I think it's like, you know, because the developers are Japanese and they don't have stuff like that over there. Like Jinx and Pokemon, they were like, you know, oh, this is kind of blackface, and then they were like, oops, our bad. Because I think Jinx is based off a yokai. I think like an Ice Princess yokai that might look like that. And then they're like, oops, our bad. And then they made Jinx purple in the next game, right? So, very torn on DevDan, because the fact of the matter is he exists. But I don't think he exists in the way he does on purpose, his controversial existence, right? Because again, you know, from there on out, you know, all the other characters that are black in the series are pretty cool. Fogato, he's pretty cool. But the thing is, I think the thing is that he does exist, and he is there, and if anyone played the game who is aware of that history and saw DevDan and were aware of the tropes at play, they might go, oh, okay, so I'm playing the racist game in the game where being racist is the message. Again, it's very confusing. I don't think they did it intentionally. It's very weird. It's a very weird situation, I would say, with DevDan. Again, and I think what he does is, I think he's a funny guy because he like pranks people, because he like Largo, he does like a hand puppet and convinces Largo it's like a real person, so DevDan's just a goofy guy who likes passing wisdom. But the fact is they made him the way he did, and that's not good. It's a stereotype. It's just not good, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not good. That's the bottom line. So I'd say having just a straight up character that could be called, and perhaps is, well, maybe not perhaps. Again, I'm not an expert on this subject matter. Perhaps someone in the comments could illuminate me a bit more on this. Perhaps I've made some ignorant statements throughout this, and for that I do apologize if I have. But I'd say that's, you know, a step above controversy in here. But again, it doesn't have, like, that's the one thing about it, I'd say. That is the one thing about it, because again, it's otherwise a perfectly pleasant game. You know, it doesn't go up to here in terms of these two. And then Radiant Dawn. DevDan comes back, and I'm going to put it above Path of Radiance. So again, this is the game series. It's like, oh, the Laguz and the Barak, we aren't so different after all. And I'm going to get off topic for a bit, you know. There's this show that I watched when I was in high school called BNA, because I was trying to get more into the Japanese cartoons at the time. I was like, oh, I'd only really seen Dragon Ball and Attack on Titan up to that point, you know, despite having a YouTube channel mostly about Fire Emblem. I would not really call myself a weeaboo. Can't really say I'm obsessed with Japanese culture. I don't know. Yeah, really, I can't really say I watch a lot of anime, just usually the stuff I like. You know, my most recent video is about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I really say I only like a couple anime, really, right? It's not like, oh, I've finished one anime, I must go watch another, but I did watch BNA. And the thing is, oh, they're animal people, and they're being racisted against. And they live in a city, and it's like, ooh, they have to have racial prejudice, and ooh, it's bad. But, you know, so, you know, it's essentially Path of Radiance. And the thing of it is, it's like, ooh, so, okay, so the message is they're equal and they're not different. So, okay, been there before, but the thing is, the Animal City, like, has rules, like, they have a baseball game in BNA, and if you lose, they can just straight up kill you. You will die. And that's not very nice. I wouldn't say that's really sophisticated. And then it's revealed later in the series they could just go berserk. I think the Hydra guy can do it. I don't know. I thought it was complete and utter dog shit. I finished it and I was like, damn, that was ass. Never watching this again. But it's like, you know, you don't want to be racist. But actually, these animals can go berserk and go into a primal animal state where they kill you. And like, then they have the president of the city say, "Oh my god, gathering all these people in one place was a mistake. What about?" So I thought that was weird in your anti-racism show. I thought that was a weird thing to have. Definitely thought that was a weird thing to have. And then we get into Radiant Dawn. We're following up on Path of Radiance. And they have it so if you give the Laguz a potion, they will just become berserk wild animals. And this happens to Miram, and then his little red-haired boys come and be like, "No, Miram, no!" And I think that's weird, because again, you know, I think there are... what are they called? There are ferals in Path of Radiance, but it's like, I think the implication in that game, there was tortured in the dungeon, and they went crazy. And I think Alencia's uncle went through the same thing. So it's like, you know, that could happen to anyone, you know, if you torture them in the poop dungeon enough. But then in in Radiant Dawn, I think, like, he just gives Miriam something exactly once, and it's like, ooh, so, okay, so the Laguz can go crazy and berserk. Then wouldn't that be, and turn into giant lions and tigers that eat people, then would that not be a valid concern? So it's like it's undoing its own message. So that's why I brought up BNA, brand new animals. So I thought it was the same weird thing where it's like, you know, I get each species has its quirk, but I wouldn't say, like, you know, the Barak use weapons, the Laguz, you know, they have a different thing, you know, to be king. I think to be king, you have to, like, be the strongest. It's not like a political thing, like, God. I remember Phoenix Master once saying, you can't say his name on YouTube, Nicholas. Let's call him Nicholas. He says, oh, my nephew, I forgot his name. His nephew's name was like, once he's able to beat my butt, he'll be able to be the king. But again, that's the thing humans can do too. It's more of a cultural difference, really, because in Awakening, Flavio and Basilio, they run a warrior kingdom. It's like, oh, they have a battle to determine who the Khan's going to be that year. Okay, so that's normal. That's fine. You know, this is like medieval. That's a normal thing to have. So on Path of Radiance, you know, I don't really mind that. But then they start getting weird about it, saying like, ooh, Laguz do this and that. But no, you shouldn't do that though. And then, ooh, I just completely remembered, like, another thing to put it above Path of Radiance. There's like, I really don't know the deal with this, because I didn't use him once, I didn't read any of his supports, but there's this, like, non-binary character, I think, and then in the English translation, they, like, use all the wrong pronouns, and they're weird about it, and then people were happy in Fire Emblem Heroes because they're referred to as they, but I don't even know what it is, like, are they, like, transgender or something? But I remember people being very miffed about how, I don't even remember the character's name, was represented for a long time, and we're very happy when Fire Emblem Heroes sort of changed how that was. So, I guess Fire Emblem Path of Radiant Dawn, oh, and Devdan's back too, and he's the same as he ever was. So, except he's Dan Ved now. So, yeah, so you got that, making the racism allegory a bit more strange. And then you have the weird non-binary thing, and then you have... Yeah, okay, so Radiant Dawn, pretty controversial. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, this is a pretty one-to-one remake of the first game, with extra content, pretty much. There's some added conversations, but I don't really think that much has changed, really. Story-wise, anyway, I think it is essentially the same game, story-wise. There you go. New Mystery of the Emblem. I will say, this one's a bit more controversial, because there's this support with Fina, and Chris is like, take off your clothes, I'm gonna force you to take off your clothes. I believe Danny Doyle made a video about this support, you can go watch that, and the original game didn't have that. And you know, your avatar saying she's gonna force your dancer to take off her clothes. I'd say that's ever so slightly controversial. just a little bit, guys. And other than that, I think it's whatever. We already talked about these. These are remakes. And then, let's see, we have Fire Emblem Awakening. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where we have to sound the alarm. We gotta go, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. We gotta put it above Thracia. We've got to put it above Thracia, because there's just a lot to unpack here. There's this character named Naui, and like Tiki, like Faye, like Mir, she is a Maneki child, and a child, ladies and gentlemen. And you could marry and impregnate her. And She's wearing scantily clad clothes the whole game. Really, only her breasts are covered up. I remember when she got a response for Emblem Heroes, and I went on Twitter, and I checked the replies, because I thought it'd be funny, because now he's always controversial, and ooh, that was a mistake. Some people said some strange things about what they want to do to now he's stomach, and I was like, oh boy, wow, okay. So you're just saying that online, on public, for the people to see and judge you. Okay. Okay. Cool, I guess. That's interesting. So you can do that, and then the child marriage continues, because Robin can marry everyone in this game. There's no limits. So if your friend Sully and Cynthia, no, if your friend Sumia has a child, and that child is obviously like 13 or 14, Robin could just be like, okay, we're married now. And that's not good. That's not good at all. Lucina and Wayne, in the Japanese version, they can get married, but in the American version, they changed it to an A+ support, so they don't get married. Good job, Nintendo America. That's you left that out. But you kept Naui, and I guess you can't remove a whole unit, but sheesh. So really, it's like Genealogy, but worse. Well, no, because Genealogy is mostly incest, but the whole marriage thing is bit sus. And I don't know. This is not to defend Naui in any capacity. No, get that out of your head. But I'm saying, right, like, if you're a 12-year-old playing the game, like, I will say, when I was 12, and I don't even think puberty had occurred yet, and I was playing Fire Emblem Awakening, right, I must have been 12, because, let's see, Fire Emblem Fates is turning 10 years old in a month. I played that in high school when I was like 14 or 15, Awakening was like 2 or 3 years before, so I must have been 12. So I probably hadn't even gone through puberty yet, I probably didn't even know what sex was yet, I don't fucking know. And I play the game, and I'm like, wow, I can marry a dragon? I want to marry the dragon! And I was 12, ladies and gentlemen. So, I guess Fire Emblem as a game aimed at teenagers, because this is a Nintendo game, folks, they are aimed at... I'd say this game is not aimed at adults. Alright, otherwise... well, adults can play and enjoy Fire Emblem, obviously, but it's not... that you're not the target audience, essentially. So it's like, maybe the devs thought we should give... If there's a 12-year-old playing the game, we should give the 12-year-old someone to marry, because again, I ain't got through puberty yet, you know, I can't really say I was fascinated by boobs at the time. I was just like, wow, cool dragon, wow. I didn't, because when you're 12, you don't think about the controversy, folks. You don't think about that. You're just like, wow, cool dragon. So maybe, again, not defending it because it's gross either way, but maybe the devs added Naui, so someone who was my age could have somebody, and then they have Rickon. So if you're a girl playing the game, you have someone to marry. And then maybe they think, oh, if you're an adult, you can just marry the adult characters, because you can select Robin's height, right? You can make Robin essentially the size of a child, and maybe your avatar Robin isn't an adult. But the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, it's still child marriage, and that's not good. I'm just saying, you know, maybe from a logical perspective, maybe I'm thinking too logically, maybe Maida's just a pedophile, really, and that's the end of it. But I was thinking, you know, from the dev team perspective, what would be a reason to have a character like Naui? Because you know that's going to stir up trouble. You know that's not good, right? You'll take one look at Naui. Obviously, I'm an adult, but when I was 12, I didn't know. But no, and obviously the people making these games are adults. They don't have like 12-year-olds working on Fire Emblem. As you're an adult, you should look at Naui and go, oh, wow, that's not good. That's not good. But, I don't know, maybe they put something in there for the kids to enjoy. I don't know, either way, it's gross. That was just my little way of thinking, why on God's green earth would they possibly do this? Why would they do this? And that was really the only answer I could come to. For someone who was like me when I was 12, who was not particularly, did not understand the female form, and just thought cool dragon. Yeah. This would change by the time Fates came out. Not having child marriage, but my perspective on things, because I think I had gone through puberty by then. And now Charlotte is my favorite Fire Emblem character. Let's see. Well, not favorite, Roy's my favorite, but that's besides the point. Fire Emblem Fates, we unfortunately have to put this above Fire Emblem Awakening. There's no Naui type character, no scantily clad child, but you still can marry the children. There's Percy. You can marry Percy, who's like a 12-year-old Kid Danger guy, and it's like, why? Why, Maida? Why would you do that? You don't even have the 1,000-year-old excuse this time. That's just straight up a 12-year-old. Why would you do that? And then there's everything you can incest. all 8 of your siblings, you're technically not genetically related to them, but it's still kind of weird. And there's the thing where, like, in the Japanese version, Korin does conversion therapy on Solio. And there's just so much. It's really impossible to list everything. Fire Emblem Fates, ladies and gentlemen. By far, the most controversial game in this series. I don't think it comes even close. There's just too much. I love you, Fire Emblem Fates. The gameplay is grand. Really fun game. Really cool character design, but there are some things in here. That maybe, just maybe, you should have thought about more than once. Fire Emblem Echoes, we're going to put this above Gaiden because this game... For this game, they decided to invent, ladies and gentlemen, they invented the concept of sexism with Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. There's this guy named Conroy, didn't exist in the original game, so every time Celica could be competent and could be a leader and could be cool, this guy named Conrad comes in and saves her because she's a woman, ladies and gentlemen. Women can't lead medieval armies. What are you, crazy? And then there's weird stuff that wasn't in the original, like when Mathilda is in prison, you can see her behind the bars. She's kneeling down, except the bars become transparent for her boob window. Okay, that's interesting. And then they add more sussy hypnosis because Celica gets hypnotized and she has to fight Alm, and Alm has to stab her and save her. And it's like, oh. So, I don't know, dude. The fact that this game invented sexism, I'm just gonna put it controversial. Because the fact is, right, you might not notice anything about, right, let's say, you know, Fire Emblem Binding Blade. You might not ever notice it. Fire Emblem New Mystery, if you don't use Fina, you're never gonna notice, like, the controversial thing they added. In this, you know, again, I think that's, again, the Lyn thing's weird. I don't really know how to perceive that. But with Fire Emblem Echoes, they just add so much sexism. It's so weird. Why? Celica can literally cast Ragnarok and make the sun blow up. She's not really a damsel in distress type character. Why would you do that? That's so lame. You know, I don't like it. You know, this series in general, right? Female leads. Let's see. Out of the games we've ranked so far. Erica, female lead, pretty normal about it. Celica, female lead, I think actually pretty normal about it in the original. Shadow Dragon, nope. You can make Chris a woman. I'm not going to count Avatar games, though. Martha's still the main character. Nope. Lyn, but she only gets her own mode in the tutorial, and then she's not in the main story, so I'm going to give that a C-. This game invented sexism. Nope. Yes. Except Micaiah is undermined and replaced by Ike at the end of the game. So again, C-. Nope. Robin can be female and she's more of a main character than Chris is, so B+. And this game has a lot of butt windows stuff, so I'm gonna give that a D-. Okay. So the series is not that great with it, but then you had Gaiden, and then you added sexism to it. I don't know why we would do that. Seems pretty unnecessary to me. Fire Emblem BS, didn't play this. Fire Emblem here, so this game, you are their teacher. And you can groom the students, you can marry all of them. Again, the Korin problem, so... But again, is this a thing in Japan? I don't know. I guess by the time you marry them, they are all adults. That's still grooming, though, but not as controversial as, like, I know, Genealogy of the Holy. Where we're gonna put this... I think we can put this at the top of controversial. Hilda is kind of racist, and she's in your party, and that's never really addressed, but whatever. Hilda's a girl boss, she can slay. But I'd say your friend, if you recommend them this game, is pretty likely to notice the grooming aspect. And, well, there's a female main character, and they're pretty normal about it, so A+. I don't know why I got stuck on that tangent, I don't know. Maybe I think women are cool. And they should not be treated as lame in the game series I don't know. And, let's see. So, yeah, but, like, it's not, I'd say it's pretty weird, but it's not like, oh, Jesus Christ, that these top 4 games have, where it's like, oh, that's bad, ooh, that's not good. You know, you don't have Pern being, like, a pimp for, like, a 14-year-old, where it's like, ooh, that's not the best. And, you know, other than that, I don't think the main story has anything worthy of calling it, oh, wait. Just remember, you are Rhea's homunculi granddaughter thing, and Rhea's homunculi granddaughter thing, and you can marry Rhea, and that's incest, so that's bad. But, again, it's not as much as Genealogy. I'd say it's pretty minor. You know, in most routes, you don't even have Rhea there. I don't really think you can marry her in most of them. So if you recommend your friend this game, and I don't know, they pick Edelgard first, that's not really a thing that's going to happen. And again, the game, I think, mostly says incest is bad, because you have Mercedes, where it's like, oh, we gotta keep the bloodline pure for the crest, and I don't like that, and my dad sucks, and my brother the death, and I killed my dad over that. So it's like, yeah, okay. Sure. And, so, yeah, I think it's mostly the grooming thing. Minor amounts of racism from playable characters. Minor, but she gets over it. She can marry Claude. So, you know, we call that growth. Character growth. Ingrid, too. She gets over it by the end of her deduce part. So, you know, having troubled characters at the start is fine. You know, they learn, they grow. But I think it's mostly just the grooming thing. That's the handle for people. Wait. I remember the Goddess Tower, where you can invite students, and there's implied romance. Lysithea, she can be like 15 in that. So can Petra. That's kind of grooming. I don't know. So I think, like I said, mostly the grooming thing. Mostly that. But I wouldn't say that puts it in the Jesus Christ category we have right above it. It's almost there. But it can stay right above Radiant Dawn. It can stay there. I'm only rating the main lines. I'm not going to talk about Warriors or, like, Shin Megami, Poo Poo Pee Pee. I don't care. But Fire Emblem Heroes, I'm going to rate Fire Emblem Heroes just for fun. This has every bad aspect of every Fire Emblem game rolled into one. We have Tiki's suspicious design. We have the incest. We have the Devdan is in the game. Devdan is not in the game, so they don't have him. So he's not controversial, but they have everything. And on top of that, you know, they even have the sussy hypnosis. They just added Fallen Lena, who's her when she's hypnotized. So it really is every controversy rolled into one, on top of a gambling addiction. So it really is the apex of everything wrong with this series. And we're on to our last one for now. Fire Emblem Engage, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. So, you can marry children in this game. So that's the thing about it, really. They removed it in the English version, but I actually remember this. This was a controversy when it came out, because some of the hardcore weeaboo types were rather peeved, because they're like, oh, I want to marry my little lolly waifu. And I think people like that, I think you should maybe stop breathing for a little while, maybe 5 minutes, see how that works out. But it was a controversy regardless. So your friend playing this and realizing that they can give the wedding ring to Jean or Anna, like the little 9-year-old tropes, that might raise their eyebrows. So that's immediately not good. Immediately not good right off the bat. I will defend. I will say, again, I think this goes back to the Lynn thing. The Lynn thing, where things are not inherently sexual, but people are weird about it. Vale's feet, yes. We're not talking about Vale's feet in a YouTube video. There's a shot where you see she's barefoot, and she has like a shackle, and people are like, ooh, that's weird. I'm just gonna say it for the story. You know, you see this wandering girl, you think she's free, because she's barefoot. You know, it's like a fairy type thing that you might see in a fairy tale. Like, ooh, the little woodland gnome or whatever, but then she has the shackles, so she's not as free as she might be, and I think it's all just symbolism. Again, I'm looking at my foot right now as I record this, and there's nothing inherently sexual about it. I use it to walk around, it's fine. So, again, if there was a pattern, maybe. Like, you can obviously deduce with Kaga, he had it in literally all of his games, right? I think we can deduce that by this point. But I don't really think feet has ever been a thing in Fire Emblem. The characters in Awakening don't even have feet, so... I think that's just a thing where people are being weird. It's like Lynn, where that's not inherently sexual. You drawing that conclusion yourself. That's kind of, I gotta say, that's kind of odd. So the Vale feet thing, I don't think they ever sexualized Vale. That's weird. But I just remembered you can marry Vale. Actually, no, I think that one's completely platonic. Nope, nope, but you can marry your sister in the DLC. That's bad. That's bad. So, here we have it, folks. Our Fire Emblem controversy tier list. We have Fire Emblem Heroes, Fire Emblem Fates, Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Thracia 776, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, Fire Emblem Engage, Fire Emblem Three Houses, Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Fire Emblem Echoes, Fire Emblem 7, Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, Fire Emblem Binding Blade, Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem Heroes Light and Shadow, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, Fire Emblem Gaiden, and Fire Emblem Sacred Stone. So if you want your friend to start this series and they don't want you to think you're kind of odd, tell them to play Shadow Dragon on the DS or Sacred Stones. That's fine. That's cool. Do you disagree with me, ladies and gentlemen? Perhaps you can comment on the video if you do disagree, so I may learn. Maybe there's some controversies I don't know about. Maybe Ike says a slur and I didn't read that support. Let me know in the comments. Goodbye. Bye-bye.